You're with Julian on the Brown Notes, putting my headphones on. And a review of the new album Golliwog by Billy Woods, and a bit of a shameful thing for me. On my radio show, I featured the last two albums by Armand Hammer, and loved them, as I'm a stuck-in-the-mud old head who doesn't really rate much modern rap music at all. So they were like catnip to me. And I didn't really pay any attention to the fact that Billy Woods' solo career. So Armand Hammer, a duo featuring Euclid and Billy Woods. And Billy Woods' releases go back to 2003 for solo stuff. And it does seem to be the kind of rap music that I would go for. So he's from, I think he's from Washington originally, but based out of New York now, and this is the 8th solo studio album. So he's often been involved in collaborative projects. Some of them have been very prominent, and I've missed virtually anything. So it's an incredible rap album, and a dark one. If you like something like Atrocity Exhibition by Danny Brown or something, this is darker and deeper. It kicks off with Jump Scare, which has got this marching troop music. I'm not going to go through every track. It's got that sort of 2.5 minute runtime thing over 18 tracks, so I'm just going to give a sort of general feel. Jump Scare's got this sort of, what the album has a lot, which is almost a free jazz beat poetry thing over the top of instrumentals that don't always have beats over them. This Winter You'll Eat to Live, Summer Heat Blew the Grid, Rabid Dog in the Yard, Car Won't Start, Ragdoll, which I assume is a Golliwog, Playing Dead. It's got this modern paranoia vibe through the whole album, which is very much in tune with modern paranoia, and it's painted very effectively through horror movie tropes, almost like horrorcore rap music. And it's got very scratchy noises over this track, like the movie Sinister. Star 87, I assume, is related to the movie Star 80, which was a very head-of-the-curve look at abusive relationships about the real-life Playboy Playmate of the Year, Dorothy Stratton, and her jealous, abusive husband who murdered her in real life. It's got a real horror vibe, serial killer vibe, very creepy, sort of like feeling of a woman screaming as her home's invaded at the end. The obsessive themes continue with Misery, obviously the Stephen King character, and it's actually got horns on this. One of the musical motifs I like the most is these really desolate sounding horn breaks on this album, which reminded me of William Basinski, particularly on my favourite track at the end. There's a Bruiser Wolf narrative opening, Black X Christmas, which has a more old school boom bap vibe. And then we come to Waterproof Mascara, which really feels like a domestic violence song before you have even got to it, just from the title alone. And the lyrics are pretty full on. Watched my mother cry from the top of the stairs, scared when it came through the walls. I covered my ears, half hoping you know who would die. Then he did, surprise. Careful what you wish for, might just get that shit. Mum showed us where she kept the passports hid. The king's dead and your uncles are not your friends. How many times I've got to tell you kids, it's us in this room, that's it. It is bleak stuff, but brilliant. And a very sort of, it's got a woman weeping over the background of it. And it's almost a beatless track again. Another high point is Corinthians featuring Death Spot, which is got more sort of beatless scatological death poetry. The Iraq War comes up a bit on this album, or maybe modern American conflicts, as in All These Worlds Are Yours, which I think is the second Iraq War mention, panning it out from individual terror to sort of global terror. Again, Maquiadora sounds almost like a centerpiece on the album, has some pretty incredible lyrics, which I'm going to read out. Fanon said self-amputation, how all this is created, the irrational rationalizations of the racists. The amputee says accept it, there's no escaping, accept the prosthetics, they give ill-fitted limbs as gifts and insist you can only live in the present. Fanon dreamed of death every night in the desert. Woke in a hospital bed, CIA handlers gently pressing. Wishing he died out there in the sand bayoneted. He had the wrong answers to the right fucking question. Amputation, how you survive. Can't get away if you don't leave something behind. Trapped a housefly in an upside-down pint glass and waited for it to die. It's still alive. Staring out compound eyes. 9 fingers can still tie a tie. Keep extremities clear. The courthouse closes at 5. I took it on the arm, caught it in a trap. Some came of their own cord, a piece already cut, neatly wrapped in butcher paper. Had to cut them off. I ain't had no option. They're the type to come back with choppers chopping. And the end of that really powerful verse I took personally to mean, like, it starts with this idea of soldiers and amputations, but it almost ends up in this Heart of Darkness, Apocalypse Now vibe of being in the Belgian Congo, where there's this famous footage of them just lining people up and chopping their arms off, and talking about the people that turned up with their arms already cut off and how you had to kill those people because they're not the people that are going to give up. If they've got that strength to do it themselves, they're the ones you've got to be worried about. I thought it was fantastic. Track 11 is A Doll Full of Pins, which has got a gorgeous sax break and vocal from Yolanda Watson. Reminded me a little bit of sort of mid-period mournful Wu-Tang laments and more of this free jazz beat poetry. The production on Golgotha again is very, very good. Mournful horns again and this sort of funeral procession beat. The widescreen production on Black Zombie, not for the only time on the album, made me sort of think about Mad Villain and the Mad Villainy album. I thought Lead Paint was arguably my favourite. It's the longest track, the last two are by some margin, and reminded me again with this beautiful mournful trumpet break of the Disintegration Loops, the landmark ambient album by William Basinski. And then the album ends on Dislocated, featuring Lucid, his other half in Armand Hammer. And that is also quite a long track. So it's often beatless death poetry, but it's an album you can live inside. It's filled with horrorcore and global paranoia. One thing that I always mention the needle drop when I say I don't normally watch reviews, but I got to this quite late, but it really pissed me off in the Needle Drops review when he applies outside logic that he seems to rigidly have to all music, apart from female pop stars who get away with murder. But here he was saying, well, not all the tracks are developed. That's the point. They're fragments. It's an abstract collage where the entirety of the project matters. Not every single track has to be fully developed. You can have these fragments leading to a bigger whole. I might give it a higher score later. I should invent a new score because I'm going to give Golliwog by Billy Woods, one of the best rap albums I've heard in the modern era, a 9 out of 10. But compared to some of the other albums I've given 9 out of 10 to, I would say it's the best by far this year. So it's probably in third place in my albums of the year so far. So Billy Woods, Golliwog, 9 out of 10.